Hello marine biology students. In this video, we're going to talk about the challenges of living in the epipelagic. Living in the epipelagic means finding ways to stay afloat. This can be accomplished by increasing buoyancy by means of accumulating lipids or air, or by increasing surface area or drag. Sharks often concentrate lipids within their large liver, which allow them to stay buoyant. Yet often sharks do still require forward motion to avoid sinking. Some organisms increase their surface area by being flat. And similar to dropping a sheet of paper in air, this flat shape will cause horizontal movement and a rocking motion which can allow for continued exchange of materials with the water. Other organisms have a variety of spines or appendages to increase their surface area. In both cases, increasing the surface area promotes drag or water resistance, which helps keep bodies from sinking. Some organisms increase buoyancy by storing droplets of lipids, which tend to float because they are less dense than water. In this image, we can see a variety of different diatoms, and their lipid storage particles can clearly be seen within their cells, applying more buoyancy. Organisms that do this include diatoms, copepods, and many planktonic larvae. Some organisms also have pockets of air that increase buoyancy, such as certain cyanobacteria, cnidarians, and fish that have swim bladders. Another designation of types of plankton are those that float, and whether they float right at the surface or above the surface. The plankton that are right at the surface are known as neuston. And these include snails that prey upon Portuguese man-o-war and other floating cnidarians. The Portuguese man-o-war, and pictured below by the wind sailor, are both considered to be members of the pleuston, because part of them float above the water surface. So the Portuguese man-o-war, Physalia, and the predatory snail, Janthia, can be seen in the top picture. The snail is preying on the Portuguese man-o-war, and we can see barnacles attached to the shell of the snail. By the wind sailor is another type of pleustonic cnidarian. Because pelagic animals have virtually no place to hide, they must have other means for finding prey or to avoid being eaten. Here in this image we see a flying fish, which while it cannot fly for long distances, it can leap out of the surface of the water and to its predators appear to have vanished until it lands a certain distance away. Fast swimming, protective coloration, vertical migrations, and a variety of sense organs are adaptations to accomplish this task of finding prey and avoiding being eaten. Eyes are very useful in the epipelagic where there is a lot of light. Eyes can be used to form images for some organisms, or simply to sense the presence of light or dark or patterns. Most pelagic animals have well-developed eyes. Eyesight is used to capture prey, avoid being eaten, find mates, and for some, to stay in groups. Cartilaginous and bony fish also have a lateral line for sensing prey or predators. This lateral line can also be used in schooling fish to remain a part of their group. Dolphins and other cetaceans can use echolocation. As a way of getting more information about their surroundings. To blend in with their environment, organisms can have different types of protective coloration. This can include countershading, camouflage, and also transparency. You can hardly see this cubomedusa in the wild, and yet it has a very powerful neurotoxin within its nematocysts. Countershading is when a fish or another marine organism will be darkly colored on its dorsal side and lightly colored on its ventral side. It may also have reflective silvery sides as well. And this countershading can help the organism be disguised regardless of whether its predator or prey is seeing it from above or from below. Another way to hide is to lack coloration and become transparent. This is the case with many jellyfishes, comb jellies, salps, larvaceans, and some zooplankton as well. Another adaptation for some organisms in the epipelagic is to have impressive swimming ability. Epipelagic predators must be able to swim quickly to capture prey, and some of the fastest recorded swimmers are found in the epipelagic, such as billfish and sailfish. This is accomplished by several adaptations. In pelagic fishes, such as in tunas, they have a streamlined body to reduce drag. They have a strongly forked caudal tail to increase thrust, and stiff pectoral fins for lift and to decrease drag. These fast-swimming fish will also usually be laterally compressed. To increase streamlining, reduce drag, and to apply more force with their swimming. Some of these fish are actually warm-blooded because the heat energy generated by muscle activity is carried back into the returning blood, and their body temperature is a few degrees warmer than their surroundings. Now they are still poikilotherms, not homeotherms, but they are warmer than their surroundings. These fast-swimming fish often have red muscles, which have a high concentration of myoglobin. Which are able to store extra oxygen. Some organisms of the epipelagic and mesopelagic migrate vertically throughout a 24-hour period, spending the night in surface waters and daylight deeper down. So some pelagic animals move into deeper waters during the day to avoid predators. At night, they move back in shallower waters to feed on plankton. This predator avoidance comes with a cost, because it takes quite a bit of energy to migrate than it would be to stay in one place. In the epipelagic, typically an animal will not feed on the same type of organism throughout its life. Here we're specifically looking at the feeding patterns of a herring, and as a young herring we see it is a prey to many and feeds on a few different types of organisms. As it grows larger, its diet changes, and it is consumed by fewer, yet other, members of the epipelagic, and soon as an adult herring, none of the other plankton consume it, except maybe for some jellyfish. Unlike the diatom to krill to baleen whale food web in the polar regions, which is quite simple, we can see quite a number of connections within this food web. While the epipelagic supports photosynthesis, there will be limits to production based on certain properties of the water. Occasionally, nutrients will be limited. Particularly nitrate and phosphate. One of the reasons for this nutrient limitation in the epipelagic is that sometimes organic matter will be lost from the environment, sinking down into lower levels and not being replaced, so at least some new nutrients need to be added from other sources. Occasionally, light will be the limiting factor. Even though there's normally plenty of light in the epipelagic, light is not present during the night, and also in high latitudes during their winter. When we look at the equatorial waters, the total amount of primary production stays pretty low throughout the year, and this is normally nutrient limited. When we look in the temperate regions, we see that during the winter, primary production is light limited, but upwelling allows there to be large amounts of nutrients. Those nutrients are then going to allow increased photosynthesis and primary production during the spring, but those nutrients will be consumed and production will drop. In the polar regions, light limiting is the most common, and nutrients can build up in waters, such as during the polar summer, there will be intense primary production. Bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms are important recyclers of nutrients in the epipelagic, and this is known as the microbial loop. From decomposition of detritus and other organisms to lysis by viruses and release of dissolved organic matter, this microbial loop often plays an important step in moving from the phytoplankton to the zooplankton. Nutrients are often depleted in the surface waters, and so often it requires water coming in from the deep ocean in order to replace some of these lost nutrients. The water at the surface is less dense than water deeper down, which is why it's the surface water in the first place. So to bring new deep water up, the density of that surface water needs to change. The cooling of surface waters can cause deep water to be brought to the surface in certain areas. This is known as upwelling. Upwelling brings vital nutrients to the surface, nutrients that had been lost from the pelagic as dissolved organic molecules, fecal matter, and mucus. Primary production is higher in areas of upwelling. Sometimes this upwelling can occur along the coast. When winds are blowing parallel to the coast, that causes a net movement of water known as Ekman transport, and the displaced water will be replaced by deep water, and that deep water brings with it many nutrients. This also occurs at the equator. Known as equatorial upwelling, as the trade winds are blowing along the equator, Ekman transport will cause water to move in different directions due to the Coriolis effect. This parting of the waters will bring up deep water, allowing for a higher productivity at the equator than might otherwise be expected. And that takes us to the end of our discussion of the challenges of living in the epipelagic. Now, before our next video, I want you to think about, what do you do when it's too dark to grow food? Well, we'll talk about that in the next video. See you then.